Chris, thank you very much for being with us today on the Fluent English Pro podcast.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me along. It's having lived in lots of countries and worked multinationally, there's so much that we can talk about today.
I'm sure, yes, because you have had contact with a lot of cultures, a lot of languages, and a lot of dynamics, because even though you are working with people that speak the same language, maybe from one country to the other, the communication dynamics are going to change.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to be covering today, communication skills at work. Not the basic stuff, but how to make your message clear and concise. That's your area of expertise. And that's very convenient, particularly for Spanish speakers, for Latin Americans, Chris, because we love going by the bushes. We are very flowery with our language, and we decorate things, and I have had that culture shock. Before we dive in, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got here. How did you get to become an expert in this area?
Well, it took a long time, as all good things do. I started off in engineering. My background is technical, and I spent a career working physically in over 20 different countries, working with teams around the world in almost, I think, every time zone, and progressed from technical through project management, through becoming a leader in some pretty large organizations. And throughout that time, the consistent thing I had to do well was communicate. And so at a certain point in my career, it was time to change, and I moved from being in a corporate environment to teaching the thing that I know and love.
Great. That's great. So you learned the trade by being exposed to the whole scenario, and
yes. This is hard-won experience, not book smart. Well, there's a bit of book smarts in there as well. Hopefully, others can be the judge of that. But this is from doing it.
I love it because you have walked the walk to talk the talk.
Oh, yes. I started by stumbling and falling, often on my face. When it came to communication, it was not a strength through my whole life. I don't believe in you're born as a good communicator or you're not. It is absolutely a learnable skill set.
It is a skill that you get to practice as well.
Yeah, oh, yes. Nothing comes without practice like this.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to our first question, which is, what is the main or the key challenge people may have in order to communicate with clarity and with conciseness? And I'm sure there might not be just one answer, because that depends on your background or culture or language, but what could be an overall or an umbrella for that?
Yeah, but let's look at for people who've got English as a second language, so looking to work in an English environment. The biggest barrier is confidence. Confidence is the barrier. And here's how it exhibits. When I think about the teams, I was working in France Telecom and working with teams across Africa and Asia. And in meetings, people would repeat their message 2, 3, 4 different times in slightly different ways because they weren't confident that it was understood the first time. And this isn't my assumption. This was sort of through talking to them about why they would do this. They'd say, well, I wasn't sure it came across well the first time. I didn't think I had the vocabulary. I wasn't sure I had the right phrase. So I wanted to clarify. And they would repeat in a slightly different way, and then again in a slightly different way. And while the goal was to be clearer, it actually made things less clear, because the more information we give someone, the harder it is for them to interpret.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, as an English teacher myself, I have experienced that. Usually, they have the skill, they just lack the confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a great example that I was working in South Africa and listening to a team talk about their top performer on their international projects. And this guy did not have great communication. He didn't have great vocabulary, sorry. His vocab in English was very limited. But he was their top performer because he just delivered his message with confidence and then asked if anything needed to be clarified. And he was happy to make mistakes. He didn't care outwardly about the grammar, whether he's misused or mispronounced a word. He cared about getting the message across. And it worked really, really well. He didn't have to use a full Shakespearean English, which is also very confusing. He would say things like, sales invoice, you got last week, yes? And it's understandable. Yeah, we got it last week. He got the message across with confidence and then worked on the other stuff later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. Making sure the message gets across, not get it entangled in like the grammar or the like wording or the pronunciation stuff.
Yeah, amazing. That nervousness stops people from saying anything.
It does.
And that's the barrier to communicating. You've got to get something out. So yeah, that confidence, biggest barrier.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you for focusing that out specifically on non-native speakers. So really appreciate that. One of the points you bring light on is making sure the first minute of a conversation is like clearly delivered. You say like the first minute is critical. Yeah. When you're having an interaction. As a non-native speaker myself and somebody who comes from a different cultural background, I had that culture shock, Chris, because whenever we have a meeting with a client or anybody, we spend like 10 minutes socializing and just having a laugh and like, okay, how are you? How are you doing? Oh, who do you live? Oh, you got kids. Oh my God, how old are they? So like we do that whole thing and it takes us a while to get to the point. And when I started working with people who are from English-speaking countries, it was like, hey, all right, this is point one from the project. This is what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. Like there was like no warm up whatsoever. And I have learned to do it that way, and I appreciate doing it that way because like it's super effective, straight to the point, and it's a time saving. So why is this first minute so critical in professional interactions specifically?
Yeah, so the first minute is critical for work transactional conversations. And can I address the first thing you talked about, the cultural bit?
Sure, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to the work conversation, we'll get to that. And the first minute is absolutely critical. When it comes to the beginning of the meeting, the beginning of the conversation, there's something I always ask my students when training to do, which is when we teach communication frameworks, it can seem very robotic. It can seem very distant. It can seem immediate, get to the point, get on with it. So I ask everybody to promise that they be a human first. So start the interaction with social stuff. How was your weekend? Oh, you've got kids. Learn about the people. Share the commiserate over the failure of the sporting event. Whatever it happens to be, do that stuff. Keep being human. Keep getting relationships. But the moment you switch to talking about the work, that's when these frameworks, to be clear and concise, come into play.
Okay, thank you for making that difference.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk later about how do we go across cultures. And there are differences even within the English-speaking countries. There are significant differences. But just for anyone listening to this and thinking, well, do I have to start immediately talking about work? Usually no. Like, be a person first. But when you start talking about work, that's when we really do need to be clear and concise.
Mm-hmm.
So should I give you a little bit about why that first minute matters so much?
Yeah. Okay, can you expand? Yeah.
Yeah, no, please expand on the question.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to have like an idea of how that first minute works or what it will look like to have like that conversation, that first minute.
So whether you're in a meeting, whether you've bumped into someone in a corridor, or you've picked up the phone to call them, although it doesn't seem to happen very much anymore, whenever you're starting a work-based conversation, the first minute sets up everything else that comes afterwards. And the reason that that's important is best described through sort of thinking about your own experiences. Have you ever been in a conversation where after a couple of minutes, you think to yourself, what are they talking about? Yeah, big laugh there. Laugh is what you can picture something.
Yeah.
Is it recent?
Yeah, I got a person in mind.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of I won't ask you to name them.
No, that's okay. That's actually she's an example for my next question. But please go ahead.
Okay. So a couple of minutes in, you're thinking, what are you talking about? You've already wasted a few minutes because your brain is trying to work out what all the information you're receiving relates to. And when they finally tell you, oh, I need to talk to you about this piece of work or that project or this task, there's that, oh, that's what you mean. And then your brain starts to go back over everything you've heard and tries to piece it together, which does two things. One, it stops you concentrating on what they're saying next. And two is it's hard. We're not very good at remembering stuff. So it's very inefficient. The second thing is another example you've probably experienced is a few minutes into a conversation, you think, why are you telling me this? Yeah, is it another smart? I don't know if it's the same person you're thinking of.
It is the same person, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully it's happened with others as well. It's very, very common to get partway through a conversation and think, do you want me to do something with this? Am I expected to take an action? And as the recipient of someone else's message, we at work tend to default to, you're about to ask me to do something, or something's gone wrong, or what do I need to do in response? And we are hyper processing the information we receive. And if after 5 or 10 minutes someone goes, oh no, I just thought you might like to know this, all of that effort that we've gone to is wasted. Or we've been working on the wrong thing. Oh, I thought you wanted me to do this, but actually you're asking something different. So making a topic clear, providing a clear intent. So, hey, David, I really want to talk to you about this project. I've got a couple of questions. I need your help. That sets you up to interpret and receive everything that's going to come next. And then the third thing you need is a clear point. So I use a 3-part acronym, topic, intent, and point, which is a tip for how to start a conversation about work. And the point is the most important thing that I want you to know. If I only had 5 seconds to speak, this is the thing I need you to know. It's the headline of my message. And if I give you that, it means I can give you detail afterwards that all makes sense in relation to that point. I've given you a very clear marker. For example, hey, David, I've got some questions for you. I need some help. I'm going to be late delivering something to a client and I need to work out what to tell them. So now you know what that conversation is going to be about. No guessing, no backtracking, no recovering information. Very clear. And then I can go into the detail.
Yeah, I was thinking that's something like book reviews versus like paper abstracts. Like book reviews, they tell you, hey, this is what the book might be about. This is what you may find. But when you read an academic paper, like you read the abstract, they tell you, this is what we did. This is what we did. This was the result.
Yeah.
This was they tell you everything, like in the first 5 lines. Then they expand on that in the next 20 pages. But you get
exactly
the get-go.
It's iterative. Clear conversations, structured conversations are not just one long thing that's well organized. It's actually an introduction that's a summary, and then the main conversation, and then an outro that is a conclusion that is a summary as well. And it's not just my opinion that this stuff works. There's a bunch of science behind it as to what our brains do to concentrate, to interpret information, to work out which bits to fire up, depending whether we're being asked a question or dealing with a crisis or listening to a funny story. And so by giving our audiences that clear information, it sets them up to understand, to pay attention, to focus. And it means you don't have all of those questions of what are you talking about? Why are you telling me this? What's your point? So that is one reason why the first minute is so important, because it just saves you time and sets up your audience to pay attention.
This is a good segue to my next question. And this is where I'm going to bring the person as an example, and it is the same message has to be delivered differently depending on what stakeholder you're talking to. If the stakeholder is a technically minded person, if the stakeholder is maybe a person from marketing, or like maybe it's like a management position, like you cannot tell them like super technical stuff. They are not going to understand because they need clarity so they can make the decision. So here comes the example. I had this ex-girlfriend. Yeah, it's not I'm going to say bad things about her. She's a beautiful, amazing person. She's a very technically minded person, and she's a topographer. So whenever she was speaking to a client, and I was there with her sometimes, like she was explaining to the client everything she was going to do, but she was using a lot of technical terms, and she was saying, okay, we're going to create a map, and this is the GPS, and we're going to use like this satellite network, and blah, 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 blah. And the client will tell her, hey, I think I got like 20% of what you just told me.
Okay.
And I will tell her, baby, we gotta make it simpler for the client, because like they are not a topographer, they are not an engineer. And she struggled with that. Like she's one of the best in town, if not the best. But because she's so technically minded, like transforming that message into something more digestible for non-technical people was a challenge, or is a challenge.
Yeah.
Hey there, if you're enjoying the podcast, imagine how much more progress you could make with consistent, specialized support every week. Introducing the Fluent English Pro membership, designed specifically for busy professionals like you who want to keep improving their English even on a busy schedule. You'll find fluency activities, tutorials, mini courses, vocabulary builders, and live events, all focused on work and business English. Whether it's mastering international meetings, doing presentations, or answering tricky emails, this space is built to help you grow. If you're serious about your communication skills, visit fluentenglishpro.com/members and subscribe today. That is fluentenglishpro.com/members. Let's turn your English into your biggest professional asset. Any tips for that? Like how we can deliver the same message to different stakeholders?
Oh yeah. How long have you got? This is the core of what I do, and it's been such a critical part, both positively and negatively, through my career and through the teams that I've led. Seeing people rise or fall has really hinged on this ability. So let me go with two things. We'll keep it just for two now. And the first thing to do is to consider the perspective of the person that you're talking to. And it's luckily there are only three perspectives at work. So we can go into every individual has perspectives based on their life experience. But at work, there are three broad perspectives. If you are talking to me about something, I'm going to interpret or evaluate it based on how does this impact the business? How does this impact people? And how does this impact product or process? And leaders tend to be business with overlap into people. Experts tend to be in the how does this impact product and process? How does my expertise come to it? And so if you're talking to a client, they are going to be looking at it in that frame. How does the thing you're telling me impact my business, my people, whether that's employees or customers? Or how does it impact the product or process that I'm using or that I care about? And if I'm deep in the product, but I'm talking to a leader, I need to convert my message into something that makes sense for the business. How does my message impact or connect to the business? Because that's what they care about. And this leads to the second tip, which is how do you actually do that? And the simplest way to translate tech into non-tech is to convert your message into efforts and outcomes. So for topography, this person wants a set of new maps. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a certain amount of time, money, and resources and mental energy. And what we're going to produce are these objects or artifacts or things that you can then use to do X, Y, and Z. How we do that, that's our magic. But here's what you're going to get. And now let's talk about what you need and how we're going to get there. Efforts and outcomes. The great thing is, efforts and outcomes have a really small set of categories. When it comes to effort, it's either time, money, resources, mental energy, or physical energy, the effort that someone will need to put in. And then the outcomes are things like financial, efficiency, speed, safety, compliance, satisfaction, reputation, engagement, and quality. And those are the only outcomes that people care about. Satisfaction in my job or customer satisfaction. Financial outcome for the business, financial outcome for me as an employee with my salary. All of these things are how you can translate tech into non-tech, or deep expertise into non-expertise, whether it's topography or finance or law.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's a great perspective. So like whatever goes in between, that's your thing. Yeah, that's your area of expertise. The client doesn't need to know that unless maybe they require it or they ask you about that.
If they ask, it's on them.
Uh-huh.
There's a really simple way to do this, particularly if you've got, call it any expertise. So we're not just picking on tech or software, but there's a method called the magic box. And this is where a client or an internal stakeholder or somebody has a problem and you have a solution. And the solution is a magic box. You as a client want to achieve this goal, but there's a problem. Well, the solution is my magic box. They go, oh, how does that work? Well, you don't need to know that. That's the magic inside the box. It works because of how we build it. And so you only open the box if they really want to know what's inside. And most people don't. Because when most people say, how does it work? What they really mean is, how do I use it? Or what does it do?
Yeah. They want to take cover the process. Sometimes successfully, funny enough. Okay. Let's connect the two topics we discussed. One was your tip framework, and then like communicating things to stakeholders, technical stuff to stakeholders. So I would like you to maybe to remind us a little bit of like what the framework is, what the three key points are. And then maybe give us a couple of real life examples. How will that work? For example, if I'm a designer and I want to communicate something to product manager, yes, or project manager, or if I'm a programmer, for example, and I need to communicate something to the client.
Okay, so I'm going to add an extra three-part model into this, but it's very, very quick. So the first thing is set up the conversation. So as a programmer talking to a client, hi client, I'd like to talk to you about our project. I have some questions. I need clarification before I build the next thing. That was the topic, the intent, and the point. The topic was the project.
Right.
The intent was I have some questions. The point is I need some information before I can move on. Mm-hmm. That is just setting up the conversation, and it's very high level. The second thing is to summarize the message that you have. Because even if you set up that conversation well, it's really easy to go deep into detail. So the second thing is to use goal, problem, and solution. So I have some questions before I can move on. Our goal is to release the next code update in 2 weeks. The problem is I don't have access to a set of the data or some of the user requirements. What I would like to do is talk to you in the next 15 minutes about getting access to the data, clarifying the requirements, and double checking we can do everything before next Friday. Goal, problem, solution. So you've set up the conversation with topic, intent, and point so that the other person is paying attention and understanding. And then you're explaining, here's where we're trying to go. We want to go here. What is difficult is this thing. That's the problem. And then here's my solution, which are those requests at a high level. And that sets everyone up for a very clear conversation. Everybody understands where you're trying to go, and you get the key information across quickly.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You just summarized it in a very efficient way, but I'm sure, like, making sure you master that takes a while, and I know.
Yeah.
But that's very good. That's very good. That outline is very, very appealing. But there comes like the practical aspect of it that requires, of course, time. Great.
It does. And then using what we talked about before with efforts and outcomes, that's the language you can use in the goal, the problem, and the solution. In that example, I didn't say the problem is we've got this API is not connecting to the data warehouse, the cross-company data layer is missing, the XYZ system. I didn't go into that detail. I used higher level language, simpler language. Going back to the vocab, you don't need a lot of vocabulary to speak clearly because most concepts can be done with everyday language. I need access to data. You don't have to name all the systems or talk about how they're connected. I don't have access to data. I don't have requirements. It's a very small number of common words.
Great. Okay, going back to one of the initial points we were covering, which is on my notes here, is cultural differences, and that's also a very important aspect because even though you want to lead the conversation one way, maybe the other person's culture wants to process the conversation in a different way.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're hardwired.
Oh, yeah.
So how can we navigate that? Maybe as a Spanish speaker, I want to give a lot of explanation and make things very soft. And like if there is an issue, I want to sugarcoat it a bit, and same thing, like the way I perceive things, if things are not sugar-coated, I might think the other person is being rude to me.
So, yes. Yeah, that is an often misinterpretation. The Dutch get this a lot. They're so rude. No, they're direct.
Yeah.
They're very, very practical and to the point. And so are a number of Eastern European countries. So culturally, they can be very direct.
Yeah.
If that's not your culture, wow, that's rude.
Yeah.
And I've lived in England, the Netherlands, and the US, and I've worked everywhere from China through to the US and many countries in between. And the cultural differences are such a common cause of frustration and pain.
Yeah. So how can we? I'm sure there's not going to be like a magic solution, but how can we make this interaction or this integration easier?
Yeah.
With all the
So
cultures.
two things. The first is a book recommendation. There's a book called The Culture Map by Erin Meyer, and it's focused on exactly this problem. And if people only read the first chapter, which is about communication differences across countries and across cultures and demographics, because they can differ within a country, think about generational differences in communication styles, or grandparents through grandkids and so on, boomers versus Gen Z. All of those things are covered in this book. It's a fantastic resource. And the real value will be it'll open our eyes. Whoever reads it will see a much broader perspective and be better aware of the problem. And then the second thing, what can we do? If you are going to have an ongoing communication relationship with someone, so you're working with a client overseas, or you've joined a team that has different communication styles, very early on, have an open and honest conversation about your different styles. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm quite direct. I'll want to talk about family stuff, but when it gets to the work, I'll be really direct. If that comes across as rude, first, please know I don't mean it to be rude. You'll know because I will tell you I mean rude. And second, let me know if I'm doing it and I will try to adapt. And then say, and so can you tell me how you communicate? Do you prefer things to be really direct? Do you prefer lots of detail? Have that conversation so that you can at least understand where some of those differences are. And then you can choose whether you put the effort in to make changes to bridge those gaps.
That's great. I've been doing that without knowing it. Like I usually, when I work with international teams, I tell them, hey, we come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different languages. So if I let you know something is not working properly or something needs to be adjusted, please bear in mind, I'm just being or addressing a professional or technical aspect, not a personal one. All right.
It's like that. And you found your own way of doing it.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't have to be in a very strict format. It definitely doesn't have to be the words I just used in the example. But even making the effort to try and find out how the other person communicates will help. And this is not just cross-cultural. This is within a team. Was running a team in the US, and I had people who were really direct to the point of like, wow, are you attacking me with your directness? Turns out they had a hearing issue and so spoke much louder than everybody else, but it seemed like they were shouting all the time. I had people in the team who were very nervous about highlighting mistakes because they'd had a poor manager before who told they were in trouble every time there was a mistake, whether it was their fault or not. So they always hedged. They would always say, well, there might be this issue, or they would downplay a problem and say, well, we could have this. I'm sure it will be fine, but I just want you to know in case, but we'll solve it, instead of saying there is a problem and this is what's going to happen. And so there was such a variety of styles within that group that this conversation about, well, what's your preferred style? Do you tend to, are you an over-exaggerator? I do that a bit. Are you a downplayer? Do you prefer conversation or email for urgent things? Like, just find out how people prefer to communicate. Some people hate emails. Some people hate the phone. So if I can adapt to fit those styles, then communication will be better with those people.
Mm-hmm. Great. I am realizing how broad this topic is, or this like whole theme is, Chris, because there are so many aspects to it. It's as you mentioned, and I would like to recap a bit. We spoke about like, you got to set up a conversation first, and within that setting up the conversation, you have to state the topic, intent, and point.
Yeah.
Then you got to summarize the message. Then you have to state the goal, the problem, and the solution. The other person doesn't need to know how that's happening, but you just need to know what is needed and what the outcome is going to be. But then you have culture, and then you have a personality types, as you just mentioned, like age. That's the other thing. For example, like generational differences. You get a millennial, you get a Gen Z, you get a baby boomer. Like they're gonna all communicate differently.
Yep, and we've just stereotyped entire generations into one word and there's huge variety within those generations.
Yeah.
This is why communication is difficult. And in anyone listening to this and thinking, gosh, David just listed out 4 different things I need to do in the first minute of a conversation. I can't do all of that. Take a breath. Yes, you can, but give yourselves 12 months to practice this stuff and build a habit of doing it. Because actually using these methods, once you've practiced them, becomes a habit. I think in terms of topic, intent, point, goal, problem, solution, efforts, and outcomes. So I'm already preparing my conversations by organizing the information that way. But it's taken a long time to get there. The thing is, if you do it even a little bit, those conversations or emails or meetings will be clearer and shorter. So you'll have more time to get on and do the other work or talk about the detail if the person is interested. So it takes time, but they are simple things.
Mm-hmm. It's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And it takes practice and practice and practice.
Yes.
And making mistakes. They are part of the process as well, inevitably.
Yes. Like learning a language.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried and failed to learn a few. I've succeeded on one and a half, if I can count a half as a success. Language takes practice and dedication and a willingness to accept. I'm going to make mistakes, or I'm not going to get it perfectly right the first time. But the more I put myself in a position where I can use these methods, the easier it's going to be in the long run. And it is worth the effort.
Mm-hmm. Great. To wrap up, Chris, if as a professional, I would like to start improving my communication to make it more concise, more direct, and like clear. What is like a small first step I could take today or tomorrow to start with that process?
The smallest thing anyone can do right now is, if you are preparing to speak or responding to a question, pause, spend 3 seconds organizing your thoughts, and then answer. Give a little bit of structure. Give yourself some space with a pause, and then say, okay, what do I want to say? And then say it. It makes such a difference to the clarity and organization and structure of a message. Just 3 seconds.
Okay. Do not be afraid.
As long as it's
not
not 3 seconds of just dumbly going, okay, now I'll talk. It's 3 seconds to think about, okay, this is what I want to say. Go.
Yeah. Use that silence in your favor to focus the conversation. Great. This is way too broad for us to approach in a single conversation, Chris. I know there is a lot more. I know you expand on this because you have a series of books and you do coaching on this area. I'm sure our listeners are going to want to learn more about that. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your books? Because I particularly, I think the first minute could be key for many non-native speakers. And the coaching and other stuff you do to help people improve their communication.
Yeah, so you've really mentioned all of it. I have a series of books all on specific situations. The first minute is, as the title suggests, about how to be clear and concise in the first minute. Whether you're talking about one topic, multiple topics, talking to a group or an individual, it's got a series of very simple frameworks, some of which we've covered today, that will help you get organized and clear when you begin that work conversation after being a human. Other books on emails and meetings and training. And what I love to do is teach teams and organizations. So if someone's looking for organizational support within their team, I do all sorts of workshops and work with people individually as well on their communication goals. So if anyone would like to know more, you can check out my website at chrisfenning.com. It's just my name. Or come find me on LinkedIn. That is my social hangout.
Mm-hmm. For those listening, the links to Chris's website and books and LinkedIn are going to be there in the episode description. So you go follow him. You get to learn more about what he does. I would like to get this book, mister, because I'm checking. Because I'm planning on creating a conversation clubs.
Okay.
And I think this will be an amazing asset for sharing, like having people read the book and talk about like how they can improve their communication styles, because I want to build this conversation club for professionals who need to use English at work. It's not like every day with English for traveling. So I'm sure this is going to be very, very useful. So yeah.
Well, you should be able to get it. It's available worldwide in a whole bunch of different languages. It's been translated into 16 different languages.
Okay.
And if you can't get a copy, let me know. I'll get one out to you.
Yeah. I just added it to my Amazon wish list like 2 seconds ago.
Okay. Nice.
Great. Chris, appreciate your message. Appreciate your human perspective on things. This is something I am so glad. I've been lucky to have people who have that human perspective in the content they share. And what you're bringing here is a lot of value, transformational value for people who want to perform better at communicating with other humans in other languages, in other cultures. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.